Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Welcome to North West Tonight. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our top story: a toxic culture of humiliation, bullying and abuse. A damning report into a residential mental health unit in Greater Manchester. The report into the Edenfield unit followed an investigation by the BBC's Panorama programme. Also tonight, the Lakeland River that had raw sewage dumped in it on 196 days last year. Campaigners demand answers. Hartley's heroics. We're going to talk to Lancashire's Tom Hartley, whose 7 wickets on his Test debut put India's cricketers in a spin.
My phone didn't stop buzzing for about 24 hours, I reckon. I still can't believe we won from that situation, to be honest.
We'll meet the Liverpool showbiz veteran who's been training the stars for 70 years and find out how she gave John Lennon a flea in the ear.
And it's been a pretty wet afternoon with some heavy rain around. That's going to mostly clear away, and I'm hopeful that we'll see more in the way of brighter skies compared to the cloud of today. I'll bring you the full forecast at the end of the programme.
Vulnerable patients were denied basic dignity and human rights, and there was a toxic staff culture of fear and intimidation. That's how an independent report has described life at the Edenfield Mental Health Unit in Greater Manchester. The report was commissioned after a BBC Panorama investigation exposed abuse and bullying there. Well, today, the Greater Manchester Mental Health NHS Foundation Trust said that it is truly sorry. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Abby Jones.
Undercover in the corridors of the Edenfield Centre, a mental health unit for the most vulnerable of patients. Patients a BBC reporter filmed being slapped, bullied and sworn at, left for long periods in isolation in small bare rooms. Panorama found records were falsified, basic checks weren't made.
I've been sat here for 35 minutes.
That exposé was described in today's NHS England review as the most shocking abuse and poor care. Patients denied basic dignity and their human rights. But the report went further. Patients and their families were ignored when they tried to complain. Nursing levels were unsafe. Staff had felt fearful to speak up for years. One told the review, "You just couldn't raise anything." Another, "We just gave up in the end." Within the trust, managers fostered a culture of fear and intimidation, and there were repeated missed opportunities to act on concerns.
Even now, I find reading his own accounts of those days harrowing. 18 months of him recording each day, and some of them were literally, people are not listening to me.
Rowan Thompson was placed in the Gardner unit on the same site as Edenfield a long time before the Panorama investigation. His father says complaints about his treatment were constantly dismissed. The 18-year-old died in 2020. An inquest found observation checks had been falsified. But today's report says the trust didn't look to see if it was happening elsewhere. It was at Edenfield.
I get angry. I get really angry that all they do is change the personnel. It doesn't matter if you change the people. You have to change the systems. They knew they had signed stuff that they hadn't done. 18 months later, the same thing is happening within the same trust at a unit on the same site. Where's the learning in that?
This report also reveals disturbing concerns about racism. Staff told the review that disruptive behaviour by white patients was more likely to be attributed to their illness, but for ethnic minority patients, it was more likely to result in restraint and tranquilisation. At Edenfield, some staff said colleagues encouraged patients to racially abuse them.
I think really we need to step away from an independent review and escalate it even further to a full public inquiry to make sure that we get to the full bottom of what's happened, the culture, the leadership issues. We owe it to all the families, to all the patients, and to all those staff who've stood up when others have stepped away.
Patients at Edenfield were in a locked setting away from their loved ones. Today's report says special efforts should have been made to ensure their voices were heard and respected. Instead, many were mistreated, ignored, even the most basic of care denied to them.
That was Abby Jones there, our social affairs correspondent. She's here now. So what have the Trust said and what are things like there now?
Well, after the Panorama programme, Edenfield was closed to new admissions. Many staff were suspended. The Chief Executive, Neil Thwaite, stepped down. The Trust was downgraded to requires improvement by the Care Quality Commission. A police investigation is ongoing, so lots happened. But staff have told us and the review that some managers who intimidated them stayed in very senior roles. Now, Greater Manchester Mental Health NHS Foundation Trust has told us in a statement it's truly sorry. It takes the report findings seriously. It accepts the recommendations. It says it's already made changes, but there is more to do and that service users are safer, staff are more supported and leadership is stronger. But for many patients and families, including Mark Thompson, who we spoke to, those changes are not happening quickly enough.
OK. Abby, thank you very much. Abby Jones. Now, people who live at Staveley near Kendal have had to put up with raw sewage flowing onto the streets and wastewater being pumped into the river. So it's not surprising that they are unhappy. And today, some of them met with campaigners with the Chief Executive of United Utilities. They wanted to demand action into the problems which have been around for years. Jonas Muller has this report.
This is wastewater and sewage overflowing in Staveley.
So this is basically toilet paper across the pavement.
Rosie Law lives in Staveley and is also an environmental campaigner. She was out walking with her young daughter.
And obviously we went to jump in some puddles, as 2-year-olds do, and there was sewage debris across the road, across the pavement and straight into the river. So myself, being pregnant, and my 2-year-old had to walk through that to get home. And sadly that's a regular occurrence.
Today, representatives of United Utilities, including its chief executive, met campaigners and the parish council.
The thing is, we're in a World Heritage Site. We're in the national park. These discharges are within 3 metres of a river which has vulnerable species in it.
Since 2015, 66 discharges of raw sewage have taken place locally. In 2022, more than 4,000 hours of untreated sewage from the Staveley wastewater treatment works went into the River Kent. That's the equivalent of around 169 continuous days and nights. Most of the UK has a combined sewerage system, meaning both rainwater and wastewater are carried in the same pipes. United Utilities is allowed to discharge raw sewage into sea and rivers to prevent the system from being overloaded.
We've got a 3-step plan, so that is around increasing capacity to reduce spills in the system. We're then going to be working really closely with the local community and the local groups to remove surface water and rainwater from the system. And then the third is the engineering and design works to give us that larger scheme, and that will help us design, plan and build that by 2030.
United Utilities' plan will deal with some problems, such as sewage getting into the River Kent, but for residents, there's still the problem of sewage on streets. Valves have been put into manholes to prevent sewage backing up into properties, but recent rainfall has meant those problems still exist. In the short term, water butts are being put in place around Staveley and work done on diverting water from some pipes.
They were baffled. They didn't know how all this water was getting into the system. Now, to me, that's baffling that they wouldn't know, that we've known of these problems. They have these problems throughout the whole of their area. So why has it taken till now for them to try and start modelling this impact?
No one wants to see raw sewage outside their front door. And the promise from United Utilities is to do what it can to put in place a long-term solution. Jonas Muller, BBC North West Tonight, Staveley, near Kendal.
Now, Greater Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham says he is not trying to build a high-speed train line to replace the northern leg of HS2, which was scrapped by the government, but he says he is seeking private finance to explore the viability of constructing a new rail route between Manchester and the Midlands for trains running at their current speeds. Mr Burnham and the Mayor of the West Midlands met the Transport Secretary today to explain their ideas for private investment.
If we do nothing, we will have a major transport headache. There is just no way on God's earth that the M6 and the West Coast Main Line are capable of servicing the growth that we're seeing in Greater Manchester and in the West Midlands.
Now, campaigners who want more funding for brain cancer treatments delivered a petition to Downing Street today. Among them was Nicola Nuttall from Barrowford in Lancashire, whose 23-year-old daughter Laura died last May. You'll know Laura, we've reported many times and followed her story. The delegation's calling for an extra £35 million a year for research. Laura's family fundraised to access treatments for her, but her mum says that patients shouldn't have to rely on charity.
It should be up to the NHS to fund these treatments, and it should be everybody's right to get a treatment that's not been the same for 20 years, because there's been no new drugs for brain cancer for 20 years.
And a 30-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of assault after a member of the audience was punched in the face during a ballet at Manchester's Opera House. The attack happened during the interval at a performance of Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake 10 days ago. The suspect's been released pending further inquiries. Now, people living near the site of a huge fire in Liverpool last weekend say that they are unhappy with the way that the site's owners have responded and with the way that the building was allegedly left insecure. The unused four-storey building in Fox Street caught fire on Saturday. No one was hurt, and the directors of the company which owns the site declined to comment officially today, but said that they have had security in place. Andy Gill has this report.
Merseyside police are investigating Saturday's fire, though the cause isn't yet known. It happened at an unfinished residential site close to other blocks of flats which are occupied. Heat damage to some of those other buildings was visible today.
The cladding is all wavy and bent. Some of the window frames are bowed. Most of the glass is shattered or cracked. Internally, against the wall, lots of the plasterboard edges are cracked as well.
Mr Burridge isn't just concerned about the damage, though. The flat he owns is in a block unaffected by the heat. But he says no one from the company that owns the site or their estate management company have been in touch with the tenants who were affected.
So it's really disappointing. You'd hope there'd be some, care and reach out just to make sure everything was okay, but we've just had to take care of most of it ourselves.
There have been concerns for years among residents and local councillors about the building that caught fire. The ward councillor says security there has been poor.
A lot of the boards were missing, some of them were falling out. You could easily get in and out. So there was regularly kids in there was rough sleepers in there were drug dealers in there, drug users in there. So I was constantly having to get onto the council to say, look, we need to put pressure on them to actually secure the site.
The building that caught fire is owned by a company called SGL3 Limited, which has an office in Altrincham. While we were filming, its directors, Darren McLennan and Kieran Moore, were at the site for an inspection.
Sorry to bother you, I'm from the BBC.
They declined our approach for an interview, but did tell me that they have had security here, that the council has delayed planning decisions, and that they'll issue a statement next week. Workmen were bringing new boards onto the site today. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Now, hospices in the North West say that they are facing a funding crisis and vital services are at risk. The 30 centres, which are charities, get about a quarter of their funding from the NHS, but they say they need much more if they're to continue providing end-of-life and palliative care. Last week, a group of MPs agreed, saying that the current funding system isn't fit for purpose. Here's our political editor, Annabel Tiffin.
Hospices provide a vital service, dignity in death and illness.
When I came here, they've helped me to cope with it and come to terms with what I've got, and they helped me through with every problem I have.
But they're facing a funding crisis, struggling to keep up with inflation and rising costs.
Now we're really up against it, and you can't keep using your reserves going forward, so we'll have to cut beds and we'll have to cut services.
And it's getting harder all the time.
It's so difficult to think ahead of how do we raise £4 million. And what if we don't? That's the big question. What if we can't do that?
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Hospice of the Good Shepherd near Chester provides inpatient care and support in the community for people like Robin. He comes every week with his wife Rose for more than just medical care.
It's just so important
They need the funding, don't they?
They need the funding. They need it. They cannot rely solely on charity.
No.
But like most hospices, this is a charity and it relies on fundraising.
The hospices we spoke to receive around 24 to 27% of their funding from the NHS. The rest they have to raise themselves, which on average is about £12,000 a day. The hospices are now anxiously waiting to find out what funding they'll get from the government for the coming year.
The deal with the NHS has always been, we as a charity bring £2 to the table and the NHS comes with £1. But over the past 10, 12 years, that £1 has reduced to 90p, 80p, and now it's below 70p. You put on top of that the cost of living, and a big hole opens up.
Hi, Michael.
Hello. The biggest cost to the hospice, around £2 million a year, is the inpatient unit and its staff, nurses, specialist doctors, consultants. And whether it's paying for medicine or a new mattress, the bulk of the money comes from donations. And that's where the fundraising team comes in. They need to raise around £4 million a year just to keep going. We asked 30 hospices across our region about their financial situation. All but one said if they don't get a better settlement for next year, they'll be running a deficit. In other words, spending more money than they have coming in. And all of them said they were already considering reducing patient services, including cutting beds.
And the perverse part of that is that the patients that use hospices will then need to use the NHS. A&E, you won't be able to discharge patients from wards, and there'll be more people and more pressure on the GPs, and at greater cost.
Hospices say the work they do and the patients they serve deserve a better deal.
We have to go out and raise money so people can have a dignified death. And I think the public would be outraged if they thought that maternity services were dependent on somebody doing a car boot sale or somebody doing a bucket collection. We would be outraged.
Annabelle's here. Hospice is not alone in thinking that this funding model is flawed.
No, only last week a cross-party group of MPs issued a report. They said that the model wasn't fit for purpose, that it was patchy and unsustainable, and that services really were at risk. And it has called on the government to produce a proper long-term plan. Now, I asked the government, the Department of Health, for a statement as well, and they say they're giving a record amount of money into the NHS and social care this year, and that the level of hospice funding is decided by what they call local integrated care boards. And that is true. The ICBs are responsible for dishing out the money to local health services. But what they've all said to me is that they have to manage their budget based on what the government gives them, and that their financial situation is really tight at the moment, but that they are committed to supporting hospices.
OK. Annabelle, thank you very much. Now, we're going to hear about Nora Button. She has devoted her life to nurturing future stars of stage and screen at her Liverpool Theatre School. The school was opened 85 years ago, and Nora has recently celebrated her 85th birthday. She was recognised in the King's New Year Honours, and she's worked with Merseyside greats like the Beatles and Sir Ken Dodd. She's been chatting to Ian Haslam.
Now gallop, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Nora Button doing what she's been doing now for 7 decades and counting.
Point your toes.
Liverpool Theatre School was founded by Nora's grandmother in 1939. Nora was taught here and later became principal.
Well, it brings me unlimited joy. I had different training because I went to be a performer, everything. And I feel as though over the years I must have given some of my good training, because, you know, they're in the West End, they're in Las Vegas. Well, they always ring and say, Miss Nora, I'm going to star in a show.
85 years this place has been going, as have you.
Yeah, but it's my passion, and it's going still because it's still my passion.
Among the many success stories, Frozen the musical star Oliver Ormston, Hollyoaks and Coronation Street actor Stephanie Davis.
You're jealous?
And the one and only Les Dennis.
I don't really know.
I taught him musical theatre. He could take off anybody. He was good as a comedian. His agent told him to come to us because he was wooden.
He got good though, and there's a new generation also keen to make their mark.
I feel like, especially with us, because we've grown up with her, she's always really believed in our talent.
And she's always pushed us for that extra edge.
and she's made me the person that I am today.
She just says just put a smile on our face, just to truly be ourselves and just like express ourselves in an art form.
And you all want this as a career, musical theatre?
Yeah, definitely. Having become principal as a teenager, Nora needed funds to keep the school running, so she entered and won beauty pageants where she met Sir Ken Dodd.
I got Miss Liverpool, but I only entered Miss Liverpool because you got £100 and we needed the money to pay the rates for the studio. And then Ken Dodd was one of the judges. He had his puppets on stage and he wanted to have children in the puppets. The Diddy Men, he said, can you manage that? I said, yes, of course. And I was with him till he died.
Love me do. Doddie's not the only Liverpool icon she knew. With the Beatles about to hit the big time, they were late for a photo shoot with Nora.
So they came in and I said, aren't you ashamed? And John Lennon said, well, you know, Mrs. I said, never mind, you know, Mrs. I said, I have to earn my living and you're stopping it. So anyway, he said, are you always like this? I said, always.
It served her well. She's been awarded the Freedom of Liverpool and recently earned a master's degree in musical theatre and drama.
She's done so many amazing things and so proud of her city, and all she cares about is the talent that Liverpool has to offer and giving them the opportunities.
As for her future plans,
I want to see more of my students making the West End.
And don't bet against that. Ian Haslam, BBC North West Tonight.
Yeah, she's worked with some stars, hasn't she, Nora? Right, let's move on to sport. Richard is here. We're going to talk about a very impressive young bowler. We mentioned him earlier in the week, who made a real impact on his debut. Lancashire bowler, of course.
Oh, he really did. Tom Hartley, Roger, chatted to him today, still taking in, I think, what he's achieved. No wonder his figures of 7 wickets for just 62 runs are the best for a debutant spinner for England since the 1930s. The young bowler who came through at Ormskirk Cricket Club was really at the heart of a fantastic team performance in that first test in India. Well, earlier today, I caught up with a Lancashire left-armer to reflect on a debut to remember.
From the position we were in, it was really unbelievable. You don't really see that very often. Still can't believe we won from that situation, to be honest.
How did you feel emotionally, Tom? Because obviously it's your debut. It's such a huge moment for you when, you know, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth wicket started to happen for you. How did you feel?
You know, I was just buzzing. I think you could see by the celebrations, I was just over the moon that I was contributing for the team, really. It was just fantastic, and to finish it that evening was even better, really. Well, after getting whacked in the first innings, I thought I just need a little bit of revenge here. So, I think it was kind of harmless, but I just really showed my emotion, really.
Yeah, you like a celebration, Tom, don't you?
I was probably just about 18 when it happened. I think it was after a good Sunday win. We really value our Sunday cricket, cup cricket at Ormskirk, and that's just what sparked from it, really.
I went to see your family the other day, spoke to your mum and your sister, and your dad obviously is so proud of you. How does that make you feel, Tom, that you've done this and you've made the people closest to you so proud?
It's a great feeling. I know they've supported me so much. They've just had a massive part to play and supported me the whole way. So to put a smile on their face, and they've massively supported me, so for them to get a bit of limelight is great.
No doubt you've had lots of messages of support from back home, from your family, but also from friends, and no doubt Ormskirk Cricket Club as well. What's that been like, and how much do you appreciate that support back home?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think my phone didn't stop buzzing for about 24 hours, I reckon. It's just amazing. You don't realise how many people are so invested and watch Test cricket. It's just so nice to put a smile on the Ormskirk fans' faces, because I know how much time and effort they've put into me. So, just to repay that favour is just amazing, really.
Great to chat to Tom. The second test is on Friday. Now, Everton dropped into the Premier League relegation zone despite clinging on for a hard-fought goalless draw at Fulham last night. The Blues, whose appeal hearing over their 10-point deduction for breaching financial rules started today. They slipped to 18th, a point behind Luton. Tonight, Manchester City's Erling Haaland will be involved for the first time since the 6th of December following a foot problem. They take on Burnley, while title rivals Liverpool take on Chelsea at Anfield. As for Manchester United, who play Wolves tomorrow, manager Erik ten Hag says footballers need discipline on and off the pitch. His comments come in a week in which England forward Marcus Rashford has had to take responsibility for his actions after reportedly twice being seen in nightclubs in Belfast. Rashford then reported ill for United training on Friday after flying to Manchester from Northern Ireland. He didn't feature in Sunday's FA Cup win over Newport.
He has taken responsibility, and for the rest it's internal matter. Case closed.
How's his reaction been, though, around the training ground, and because he's in the squad against Wolves, I presume?
But as I said, case closed.
I think it's
shutting that story down.
Definitely closed, Rog. It'd be great to see Marcus back to his best, wouldn't it?
OK. Richard, thank you very much. Just quickly before the weather, an update on a story that we mentioned to you earlier in the week. Memorabilia from Peter Kay's Phoenix Knights, which was up for auction, sold today for £21,000. Right, let's have a look at the weather. Simon is here. How's it looking?
Very wet out there at the moment, Roger. We've had some very heavy rain moving its way south and eastward across the region. It's been a rather grey sort of day, really. Pretty uninspiring pictures from our weather watchers today with all that cloud. And you can see that rain as it moved its way in. Now, at the moment, it's very wet still around parts of Merseyside and Greater Manchester. We've got some heavy rain still to come over the next hour or so. But it is now clearing away from parts of Lancashire. And that rain will continue to spread south and eastward and clear. And as we go through tonight, there'll be some clear skies and temperatures getting down close to freezing in 1 or 2 spots, 2 or 3 degrees in the major towns and cities, maybe 4 Celsius there in Lancaster, 5 in Douglas. But as we start off on Thursday, it should be a lovely start to the day, plenty of dry and sunny weather. The cloud will tend to increase a little bit into the afternoon before clearing away again from the Isle of Man, so some sunshine returning here. A chillier day compared to today, temperatures around about 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. But going into Friday, we've got this big area of high pressure just to the south of the UK. Now, it's going to give us mostly settled conditions, and the wind is going to come in from the southwest. So temperatures will rise again as we go through Friday. You can see those milder yellows across the UK. So temperatures coming back up into double figures. Now, this is Friday. There will be a lot of cloud. There could be some spots of rain and drizzle coming in on that wind, particularly over the Pennines through into the afternoon. Top temperatures, though, about 11, 12, maybe 13 Celsius in Manchester. And then as we go through the weekend, we keep that area of high pressure, but 1 or 2 weather fronts just kind of positioned across the northwest. So that's going to continue to bring us some cloudy skies and some rain at times over the weekend.
Scattered showers.
Yeah, not a washout, but, you know, just a bit of patchy rain.
Good to know. Thank you very much, Simon. That's it. Thanks ever so much for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.